That's where we're going to get into some ideas around my business, and actually the core of it is simplification, and not necessarily pivoting, but doubling, triple down on some things and learning more about like what you should be doing personally. And we're also going to talk about scaling or not to scale, scale or not to scale, scaling or not to scaling. That's something that's part of this as well, because I'm going to kind of define what my vision has been for my business and how that's evolving. Not everyone's Michael Jordan. Not everyone's that rock star business person. I don't know that I am, because I feel like if I was that rock star, right? I've been running businesses for a couple decades. You know, I wouldn't have to be worrying about retirement plans at this point if I was that rock star. And this is not to get, negative. I believe in myself. I think I understand my, my strengths and my weaknesses and all that. But maybe I'm not meant to build that thing that I'm dreaming of. But, it's in the thousands, but it's not like giant, So, but the thing about it is I'm so excited about this. Like, I don't even care. Like, it's actually a design project. Now, I didn't design. I actually gave it, gave the requirements to my designer, and she did an awesome job. Already approved. Mock-ups paid, that mock-up milestone is paid for. So we're rocking and rolling. We didn't even have another iteration. He just liked it because my designer's awesome. But that's awesome. So now we're going to build it. But I'm thinking, like, gosh, this is fun. I'm kind of rediscovering my craft, right? I've gone through the ringer, working with larger agencies and building, starting to build this larger agency and managing, realizing, I'm going to have to get people to do certain things and blah, blah, blah. And then I come back down to this. And it's like, I really miss this. I really enjoy actually getting my hands dirty and, being part of the building. So it makes me think about, has that original vision that I had, is that even something I want to do anymore? Hi, I'm Matt Levenhagen, founder of Unified Web Design, UnifiedLabs.ai, and the host of the Builders Podcast. Here on the Builders, our goal is to uncover the first principles behind building businesses, products, and services. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. And if you find value in our content, a like, share, or review is always appreciated. Let's dive in and explore the roots of innovation and progress together. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by myself, me, and I. Me, myself, and I myself, me. And we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about my business and some things going on in the agency world. My agency world, anyway. There's a lot happening, obviously, across the landscape in business and probably touching every industry in terms of AI and what's going on, the economy, everything happening in the world. But we're going to get into my business and how it's being affected. Not really. I mean, yes, it's being affected, but it's also forcing me to really think about my business. And I've had some recent experiences where, I've had some aha moments, especially this past year. And these are the moments where you have to, if you're a business owner, if you're a leader of any kind, if you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you gotta not only roll with the punches, but you have to learn from them. So that's where we're going to get into kind of some ideas around my business, and actually the core of it is simplification. And not necessarily pivoting, but doubling, triple down on some things and learning more about like what you should be doing personally. And we're also going to talk about scaling or not to scale, Scale or not to scale. Scaling or not to scaling. That's something that's part of this as well, because I'm kind of define what my vision has been for my business and how that's evolving. I'm sitting back here. I got, I don't know if you're into cappuccinos and lattes and all that good stuff, but I kind of have a sweet tooth when it comes to that stuff. I love my coffee. But I'm enjoying a nice vanilla caramel latte at the moment. Maxwell House. Did you know that Maxwell House has a delicious vanilla caramel latte? So which I shouldn't be drinking because it's actually kind of warm in here. So if I start sweating on camera, but it's worth it. Gives me a jolt of sugar too. Anyway, so, but yeah, I mean, every business, there's different seasons, right? I've been had this particular business I'm midway through the 7th year, right? And it's been a ride. It's been an interesting ride. We had a lot of ups. We kind of had a slow start, and then we had a really good, 3-4 years of actually the first 5 years, pretty much growth. Headed in that direction anyway. Good growth. It was great. And then this last year hit, and things leveled out, and even started to contract a little bit. And there's a variety of reasons for that. You talk to any business, they probably will tell you what those reasons are, because it's probably happening to a lot of businesses. The way I built things, we do agency partnerships, and we have direct clients too. But all those things, even if another agency is not doing well or they're not getting the business, we're not getting the business because we're helping them. So there's this trickle down effect. It's not a good trickle down effect, but it is what it is. So we're kind of in this season, this past year of trying to make adjustments and team size, cutting costs, trying to streamline, trying to hope it turns around, that type of thing. I remember last summer, it's like, oh, after the election. And then now it was like, I was talking to somebody who was like, yeah, this fall is going to be great. And you can keep saying that, but hopefully it will. Hopefully something will happen. And really in my business, it's like just one big client, one big contract could turn things around, right? But you can't, you should believe in things, but you have to somewhat stay grounded as well, or, plan for it not happening, maybe. But so a lot of things have been happening in my business, but I've also, like I said, I've had some experiences, some things that have made me reflect a lot in recent times. I probably even in the past solos this year have talked a little bit about it. Even in some guests, I bring up little things that have happened, and it's not like earth-shattering stuff where we're going to go out of business tomorrow or anything like that, but it's stuff that makes you think. Today's a little off the cuff. I mean, it's per usual. As if you've followed me or listened to this program for any length of time, you'll know that I often come up with these topics last minute. It's just how I operate. I was, in the code earlier today, and oh, I got to do a podcast. And I try to slide in solo episodes every 5 to 6 weeks, 4 to 5 to 6 weeks. And this, I was due. So I wanted to make sure I did this. So I sat down, came up with this idea, because it is something that is really impactful. And hopefully the goal here is me to share my story, and hopefully it either inspires you or gets you thinking about stuff, and at least the positive things, hopefully, that type of thing. And maybe you'll learn something along the way too. Maybe I'll drop something so profound that you never thought of before. Who knows? That's the idea. So that's what we're going to talk about. So first of all, let's dive into the, kind of my original vision for my agency. Okay. So in the beginning, just like you start anything, you kind of start by yourself. Not everybody. Okay. Some people, they find people to do stuff with. I didn't have anybody to do stuff with. I kind of did. I had other freelancers I knew, and one in particular I started helping out stuff when I first started Unified Web Design. And so I was doing work pretty much out of the gates when I left my last job. But that, the first year or two, I would use contractors here and there. If I got, too much work or a large project, I would get help on it. I'd bring somebody in. I know some US based contractors at the time. I would bring them in. They would help out. But then a couple of years in, I started building an actual internal team and started to build an international team on top of that. So that worked out pretty well. And it's still working out pretty well. And but in the beginning, or through that, I really I had a vision of building a multi-million-dollar agency. I would tell people that this is my retirement plan. This is it. I know I'm in my mid 50s. I don't have that much time left, relatively speaking. Okay, hopefully I have some time left. Depends on what my doctor says on Monday. That's a whole nother story. No, I'm fine. So I had this vision though, I'm going to build this agency, and we're well into it, right? We're a 6-figure agency, solid. We're growing 40% a year. Boom, 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 boom. We're going, right? And we're still that, but as I scaled up and as I do, we hit some rough spots. Again, not getting certain business from, hang on one second. Alexa, turn off the display, please. Sorry. For whatever reason, I got the Echo display or Amazon Echo display and whatever it's called. And sometimes I forget to turn it off. It's like right over here. It was distracting me. Anyway, so I've had some rough patches, and the business has been kind of, we still have good contracts. We lost a contract this year we had for years due to AI. They figured out how to do what my developer was doing in-house using AI. So that was kind of bad. I had a contract that I got out of the blue. Something I'd been working on for a while, got out of the blue, and it was going to be this big contract. And that didn't go well, but I learned a lot from it. And, one of the things, unique things that, somebody like in my position that partners with other agencies, and I would imagine they would think the same, vice versa, maybe. I don't know. But is I get to see how others operate, right? And I hang out with other agencies and stuff. I belong to communities with other agencies. I joined a few actually recently that hundreds of agencies that are in the game. They're doing their thing, but actually working with an agency and getting really involved with that agency, and seeing how they actually run their business. And you're like, huh, they're doing a way better job at that. No, but you see how they operate, how they think, how they, just day to day. And I got a chance to take a glimpse into a largest agency. I don't really know how big they were. I know they were big enough though. And a lot of business. But I just look back at it. I'm like, my God, what was that? do I really want an agency that size someday? It was different. It was different. It's not, it's not only that though, it's also the fact that, so even as my own agency has grown, there have been, pretty much the last several years, I'm more in a management role, right? On the marketing, content side as well, because we got to keep that side of things going as well. But there was actually periods of time where like I was a project manager, essentially. I'd wake up, reviewing work. That's what I was doing. I even when I had a project manager, I was still a project manager. It was like a dual role for a while, especially earlier this year. And then I had a QA person, and then I had, at my peak this year, I had like 8 or 9 developers. I had a full-time quality assurance. I had a full-time project manager. Designer was in there. There's, we're doing a lot of stuff. So as you can imagine, that's my day is not thinking about what am I going to code today. Who am I giving that to code for me? And it is what it is. Something, I think there's something to be said that, I mean, everyone's different, right? Some people are going to really love that. I don't mind it. And honestly, if I got a big contract tomorrow and I had to do it again, I would, to that scale again, I might, but I've learned some lessons, so it would have to, satisfy some things. I would ask more questions this time, but there is, at the end of the day, you have to really know what you want to do and, why you want to do it. Obviously I wanted to build a big agency because, again, I'm not kidding about the retirement plan, and I've talked to other agencies that have done it, that have, plenty of businesses that have, sold their businesses and everything. And there's ways you build a business to do that. Right. And so that has been kind of how I've been sculpting things these past number of years. That's why I have Unified Web Design and I have Matt Levenhagen, right? MattLevenhagen.com, and kind of this podcast, although it's dual purpose. And then, and just really trying to kind of build up my brand alongside there, my personal brand. Has that worked? I don't know. I don't know if, I don't know if it's really worked. Yes, to a degree, I have personal brand. You can, look it up, look me up on Google. You can ask ChatGPT, actually, who's this Matt Levenhagen guy? I dare you to do that. It'll give you a rundown. But so I'm out there, but, is it serving me? Is it really, in the beginning, like with Unified Web Design, like literally on the homepage was my bio, because it was me in the beginning. Like that was my brand, right? I was baked into it. And the idea is eventually you move away from that and you step away from stuff and you get people to do that stuff that you were doing. That's the whole idea. And then it's easier to sell that because now it's, running on its own and your identity's not wrapped up in it and all that good stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot, there's people that can do that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get there. Things have to, some of it's luck, probably. Some of us, the right relationships, the right skill set. Everything, like none of us, you can look up, think about, sports figures and stuff. Not everyone's going to be Michael Jordan, right? Everyone's going to be, even in school or even in business. Not everyone's Michael Jordan. Not everyone's that rock star business person. I don't know that I am, because I feel like if I was that rock star, right? I've been running businesses for a couple decades. I wouldn't have to be worrying about retirement plans at this point if I was that rock star. And this is not to get negative. I believe in myself. I think I understand my my strengths and my weaknesses and all that. But maybe I'm not meant to build that thing that I'm dreaming of. So the other thing that with building a larger agency and ending up, not being, in my case, in the code, whatever you would do for your craft, the other part of that is you start losing, if you're not careful, you start losing the quality, you start losing quality. Quality control is important. But it's not even beyond that. You can still have quality. But like for me, when I spent years doing web development myself, learning the craft, learning how to code. I learned how to write JavaScript and program with JavaScript. I took courses, lots of courses, programming courses, and pretty much self-taught. But then I also used that to build stuff, right? I've actually used it. Built a lot of WordPress themes, websites, and all that stuff. But back in the day, like I really cared about standards and writing clean code and that a lot of that was super, like I almost enjoyed that part of it. Like I really wanted to write things properly, even down to how I'm writing my CSS and what order things are in a CSS file. I still do that today, actually, which we might touch on. But I care about those details. I care about the quality of the output. But when you're managing a team, you have to let go of that a little bit. You have to trust them that they're going to, you can set up the standards, you can create the documentation, you can do all that stuff. But sometimes you have to you're not looking at the code. You're trusting in the process. And a lot of code that we write, I know it's doing the job, but I don't really always look under the hood because I don't have time, especially if we get super busy, right? Somebody is on the team, but we don't have, it just depends on the makeup of the team and stuff and how that works. But that's something that you risk, especially maybe short term. Maybe are you always going to have a quality assurance person on your team? That costs money, right? You could, and there's times we have, but not all the time. You also got to keep them guys busy. But you gotta, part of this is passion. Part of it is what brings enjoyment, and honestly, I can't say that project management is really, if I love project management, wouldn't I have that as a career or something? Project management is kind of it's not like you're managing people. It's management. I don't know that is what I wake up every day to want to do. Right. Yeah. So, and again, when I'm thinking about all this stuff and the scale we even got to, right. Or are, well, we kind of, got to whatever. When you get to that point, you're wearing all these different hats, but you stop wearing the craft hat, the one where you're down in the weeds doing this stuff. Maybe you aren't sometimes. Actually, this whole time I kind of was in and out. There's certain things I would handle. A lot of times that was, more technical stuff, even server stuff, server side and DNS and doing all that side of things. But I would have somebody else doing the front end stuff or whatever. Most of the front end stuff I would give to somebody else back into. But anyway, but really, again, where am I going with this? I think you can have a vision for a business, but maybe on the road to that vision, you make some realizations. You realize that's a little too chaotic, or that's a little too much management for me, or that's a little too much. Do I really want this? Or I miss this aspect of what I do. And I know I've talked to people that have tried to build agencies and they become freelancers again. That happens all the time. And sometimes that reason, is because they didn't like managing a team or certain aspects. It's just different, right? Yeah, I want to build a multi-million-dollar agency. Yes, I do. But to get there, what that means, what that sacrifice is, is it really what I want? So recently, in fact, so recent, it's been in the last week, I've been in code again. So we have really pared down the team in recent months, and the team's pretty small right now. So I still have some developers helping me, but I'm doing more stuff. And in fact, I took on a couple landing page projects this past week, and they're basically landing pages. And there's like a PDP page, a product details page. It's for paid traffic. It's basically a funnel, and I've been building this kind of framework to build these funnels for a particular client. This is a client we've had for years. And it's WooCommerce, but we're building these really, the goal is really lightweight, fast, awesome landing pages, right? And I spent a lot of hours these past few days coding. Been using an editor called Cursor, which is an AI editor. So it's AI assisted, and kind of building a system around it and everything else. That's a whole nother story. But it really, when in the middle of that, it's like, I really enjoy doing this. And this is actually a weekend. Oftentimes this happens when I'm doing it last minute. It's the weekend. But I've been coding. I've put in numerous hours of coding this weekend. Not all code. I work less on the weekends. But today I was finishing up, or last night I was finishing up this project doing QA, and really checking everything, checking the mobile, checking everything for the page, and the content and all that, and getting it ready, getting it prepped to roll out. And as I was reviewing this project is something that's repeatable. So I literally am creating a system around it, like a framework, a template around this thing that I can replicate each time. And each time I do it, I make improvements. I tweak it. I improve the standards that we're using and how I'm using AI and what works, what doesn't work, creating modules, doing all this stuff, right? Basically creating a custom in-house framework for this particular, just for this client, and, focus on what they care about, create a good process so it's quick and blah, blah, blah. I loved it. I loved spending that time this weekend doing it. And the building it was great, but actually working on structuring the CSS code and just, working with the AI to figure out the best way to code it. And there was a special function I'm using and how to write that better, and just getting in there and just being in that, like when I'm doing that stuff, it's just even with design is the same way. When I'm doing that stuff, when I'm actually applying my craft, I lose track of time, and I'll come out of it and I'm like, whoa. What day is it? What was I supposed to be doing? I feel this weird tinge of guilt because I feel like there's something I'm missing, because I'm not used to being in the code as much anymore. So I always feel like I should be doing something else. But it was great. So I got back in touch with that side of things, kind of relighting that spark. and I got to focus on the quality control, and I got to, feel really confident about what I was delivering. Um, but yeah, I love building those frameworks, building those systems. When I back in the day, so back 10 years ago, when I was working for a company called Rapid Crush, we built WordPress themes. It was like a whole thing. We started out by selling them individually, and then we ended up building a whole marketplace around it. But when I met with Wilson and Jason, that are the co-founders of that company, we sat down about this project with their programmer, Dan. We all sat down and we discussed this. I onboarded what they're trying to accomplish and all this, but then from the next few years, what I did is I took that idea and turned it into a system on how to design them, build them in a way that we could sell them, but we could also replicate and speed up that. It was a whole thing, but I love that. I'm basically doing the same thing on a kind of a smaller scale for what we're doing right now, or maybe not smaller, because I'm actually thinking about the fact that I could use this for other people. So, but I love that, and I think being able to do those things, and this I'm kind of thinking about too, is like that's who I am, right? That's what I love to do. And that can kind of turn into like a strategic advantage. Like when I'm talking to others in marketing and myself and what we do, I kind of do that. I mean, I talk a lot about building custom. That's our focus. But, this is, kind of a step further from that, right? There was because we were looking for business, as everybody is, as everyone should be. We actually have been trying to, and this is something I've actually try to do for the last few years, is to establish us as an agency on Upwork, just to see what we could do there. Just another like channel, stream of income, maybe. We actually got a project. We landed a project. It's a web design and development project, real estate site. Probably will end up in our portfolio, so look for that. But it's interesting because Upwork, there's actually some people, like some larger jobs there. I don't know if they're legit or not yet. This was, we're not making the money we normally would make on something like this. But honestly, we're just like, let's just take it, because we're trying to build, a reputation there and build a portfolio there. And people do look at what you've done. So if you got to start small, you got to start small. It's, it's in the thousands, but it's not like giant, So, but the thing about it is I'm so excited about this. Like, I don't even care. Like, it's actually a design project. Now, I didn't design. I actually gave the requirements to my designer, and she did an awesome job. Already approved. Mock-ups paid, that mock-up milestone is paid for. So we're rocking and rolling. We didn't even have another iteration. He just liked it because my designer's awesome. But that's awesome. So now we're going to build it. But I'm thinking, like, gosh, this is fun. And let's slow down. Let's like really do an awesome job with this. And I'm not saying we don't always do an awesome job. I'm just saying, like, this is fun. This is what, let's go to the extra mile on this. I want to get in there. I want to actually guide the process a little bit more. I'll probably get some help from my developer, but I think I really feel like I want to get in there and at least build a framework for it and get it started. But I'm getting excited about that. It's not the money. It's not the money. It's because I'm excited just to have this project and to be able to do something really cool, to actually, yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I've talked, I think the last time I was in solo, I'm doing some AI stuff. I'm building a chatbot using Replit. There's a site called Replit, if you check it out. I'm building a chatbot, and I'm going to do some automations from that and just having fun. Just building it, kind of architecting it right now, and I haven't even really started coding it or building it yet. But I'm excited about that. But I tell you that it's because I'm kind of rediscovering my craft, right? I've gone through the ringer, working with larger agencies and building, starting to build this larger agency and managing, realizing, I'm going to have to get people to do certain things and blah, blah, blah. And then I come back down to this. It's like, I really miss this. I really enjoy actually getting my hands dirty and, being part of the building. So it makes me think about, has that original vision that I had, is that even something I want to do anymore? I've tasted it through what I've been building in the size I got, and also seeing other agencies and the chaos of running those agencies, the ups and downs of those agencies, and what it is, as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking, I don't know that vision is serving me anymore. I don't know if it's really like, yeah, okay, sure. I build a multi-million-dollar agency. I retire. Do I really want to retire? But that was the idea. But like, maybe now, I can still build that, right, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that's not out of the realm of possibilities. Maybe I just want a decent income doing what I love and building it how it's going to, I can still, that doesn't mean I'm not going to make decent income. Hopefully. I'm in tech. I should be able to, but not worrying about that, not making that the priority, being involved, being in the code, doing the design, doing the development, being the core of the team, and then having my helpers around me or even partners in building things. But just a smaller, not worrying about size, not worrying about scale, just, and being pickier about what we do. I think I mentioned like offhand, like I should ask more questions because I got myself into a contract. It was like chaos. And I'm like, I didn't even realize it would be a thing. Like I didn't even know this type of thing could happen. But it's just, I didn't enjoy that. And it was kind of, on some level, it was fun. It was like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe we're doing this. We're going to have a great year. But at the end of the day, it was like, whoa, what the heck was that? So one of the things to what I'm going to be actually thinking about doing here, and I actually think it's funny because my VA helps me. I have a VA that helps me with my marketing, distributing our content and creating content for us, and helps with this podcast. And it's and I find it's funny because so oftentimes she learns about things when I'm recording a podcast like this. Because it's important for her to know what we're doing in our direction because she's creating the content and we build the content around whatever we're doing. Right. But I'm actually making some hard decisions, and it's in the everything I've been talking about, how, this roller coaster ride, it was really great going up that hill. Going up that hill. It was great. It was a fun ride building it. But now I'm thinking back, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's it. That's my focus. So everything I just said. But what I'm thinking about doing is consolidating some things and really, we're at a stage too where it's becoming more critical to streamline, to become more agile. And this all plays into this as well. But what do I really want to do? What do I want to be? And I really think I want to really embrace my craft again. I want to um, make that part of my really what my brand is, who my personal brand is. This is what I do. Like, what am I known for? You know, what do I want to be known for? That creative guy that, you know, designs and builds websites and alongside his AI buddies. um, so there's certain things that, though, when you're at a stage like that, where you have to look out, like, what isn't serving me anymore? And unfortunately, one of those things, unified plugins. Now, if you may or may not know this, but we have a website called Unified Plugins, and it's been also my kind of one of my dreams over the last number of years has been to sell products, because I always sold products. But even though we built all those products, we have like 4 or 5 plugins. That's great, but the problem is we don't really sell that much, and I don't have the bandwidth, time, and I invested a lot into it. I don't have anything to invest into it anymore. I have to invest everything into other things we're doing. So it's not really serving us, and I don't feel like we can do a good job anymore of that. So I'm going to I'm not deleting the plugins. I mean, they could revive again at some point. We could use them in a project or something. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just phase out that domain and redirect it to Unified Web Design, have a landing page there that we can build plugins for you. Or, you know, just have the history of the historical record of what happened there. So people know if they end up there or look for it. And then another one is mattlevenhagen.com. Now, I hesitate a little bit on this because, yeah, personal brand's been an important thing. But does it? I don't know that it's really served me. I think the biggest thing, you know, with where all our revenue comes from and our biggest focus in everything we do is unified web design, period. And I'm part of that, but I think I need to become more part of that again, and emphasize myself on that site and that within that brand again, and just not worry about it and not get distracted by Matt Levenhagen. I even, you know, was going to do some consulting on there. I have been building products around or giveaways there and stuff, and I got the blog. A lot's been put into it, but I think that I don't know that I will redirect that one, but I think I will pay less attention to it. Or if I do redirect, like I said, I'll probably have a historical record or something on unified web design. I don't know yet, but that one's a little, I have to think about it. But the 2 main things that I'm going to be focused on is the builders.fm isn't going anywhere, because this is an important thing and it's something I enjoy. So I want to keep this going as long as possible. So this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Might have a 3rd season idea though. But so this is because I do think that in a weird way, unified web design and the builders is like kind of tied or, you know, attached at the hip or something. I feel like one serves the other and vice versa. So that's so that if you're on video, you just saw a bunch of balloons go up because I did some kind of hand gesture. My computer decided to put balloons in there. Anyway, so the mattlevenhagen.com, we'll figure that out. But unified web plugins, I'm probably going to pause that project to focus in on unified web design. And the builders like just kind of runs itself anyway. So it's just a routine we do every week. But yeah, so unified web design. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to really focus on, you know, almost like running them. I don't know if you'd call them. I've heard that some people don't call agencies anymore. like in part of the younger generation, they don't really think of themselves as agencies or call themselves agencies. I don't know who was telling me that, but in fact, another agency owner, I think, was. um, so I don't even know if I want to even consider myself an agency anymore, but like, or maybe a micro agency. Um, and you know what? If we get the big projects and something major happens and I have to build another team, I probably would, not say no if it was the right fit. Listen, I still love what I do. And I still would love, I love that idea, but at the same time, I don't want it to make, I think the point of this whole thing is not to make it the thing. That I don't want to lose sight of why I started doing what I do, what I'm doing is because I enjoy it. Back in 2012, when I decided to go, to pivot out of what I was doing back then to do web design and development, I chose that because I love that. And I still do. I still love building things. I love taking, talking to a business owner or, somebody that wants to build a website or has a website and getting on a meeting with them, listening to their vision, their pain points, their problems, and helping them solve those things. Helping them do better because, we fixed a problem for them or we built an awesome website for them. And being part of that process, spending hours just coding away. I love that. There's frustrations in there, but that's part of what I enjoy. Like, I like the challenges. I love working through that. I want it to be challenging. I mean, the work still needs to be challenging, but I really think, the reason why I wanted to kind of, remove unified plugins from the mix and thinking about Matt Levenhagen and figure out what I'm going to do there. I want to simplify. And I think there's power in simplification and really trimming things down and getting back to your roots, remembering who you are. Like, we can have like these grand visions. And it's like, I talk to some people and it's like, I think there's certain people out there you would talk to and be like, what, are you crazy? Are you, everybody wants to build this big business and sell it someday. Why don't you want to do that, Matt? Listen, when I was in my early 20s, I tried to be an artist. Okay. I was the next Picasso. I was the craft. I was painting on canvas and drawing every day. And for years I was doing that. And I loved that. I was in the craft. That's what I wanted to do. And I feel kind of the same way now. It's like, I want to build stuff and I want, my sweat and blood to be there. And there's a lot changing in the industry too. I think one of the, I think this can be kind of a strategic, not just a pivot, but it's more of a step back and consolidating and simplifying. But I think being authentic, having a clarity of vision in what you want to do is important, but also getting back to those roots of that personal craftsmanship of really having your fingers in there and really caring, being close enough to the code, even if somebody else is creating it, that you're close enough to the code where you're reviewing the code, whatever it is you do. Maybe it's writing or maybe it's marketing or whatever you're doing, building that product or service. But being closer to that. But I think because of everything that's happening with AI and with all these things that are hitting many of us, that maybe getting back to more of a personal, authentic craftsmanship type approach could set you apart, could set me apart. You got to look for, you always want to look for those differentiators, right? Like something that's going to really set you apart. I know I know I have still a value to offer, right? Even if I'm not going to build this giant thing, even if I came back down to just being a freelancer or whatever you want to call it. I haven't had a freelancer who doesn't like being called a freelancer. I don't remember what he said he'd like to be called. I don't know why people don't like to be called things. So I really think that I know that I have value in what I do. And I was reminded of this the other day. I got on a call with this long-term client that I've had for years. Has always been one of our largest contracts. Thankfully, we still have. And we were on a meeting, and I don't know, it's like the perfect relationship where, the perfect partnership, the perfect client is somebody that you really do connect with, and they care about you. They ask how your health is, how your family is, or whatever, how are things going, Matt? And then we dive into talking about whatever craziness is going on over there. But he said to me, he's like, he actually asked me this last meeting, which I wasn't sure where he was going with it. He's like, Matt, how do you market yourself? And I'm like, I pretty much, it's all referral, word of mouth, content, social media, this podcast, just networking. And that's how I built it. And he was kind of, I don't know if he was surprised by that, but he's like, you don't advertise? I'm like, I don't advertise. He advertises. He's got an e-commerce store. So he does a lot of advertising, and I help him build landing pages for those things. But I think he's like, he's like, it was interesting because he basically said, he's like, I don't see anybody else doing what you're doing, Matt. He's like, who else does what you're doing? I'm like, I don't know. Now he deals with other agencies. We're not the only agency that helps him. He deals with digital market agencies. He's been getting, deals with CROs, and he deals with, he's like working with a funnel agency. They design the funnels, we build them. He's doing, he sees a lot of stuff. He's been out there. He's got a large business. But he's like, I don't see anybody doing what you're doing, Matt. You should maybe think about putting up some paid advertising, like an ad up, Google or whatever. I'm like, could think about it. But I think, and I don't know if he meant just like the uniqueness of how we're focused on the design and development and maintenance. And for us, it's a maintenance contract, but it's kind of like an all-inclusive maintenance contract. Like, we maintain his sites, we keep them running well, and they're some crazy sites, and there's a lot going on, but we manage to keep everything running pretty well. But we help them with other things like building, like certain types of projects. Some are very technical, integrations, new features, landing pages, funnels. We're doing all this other stuff as well. But he's like, I think the fact that a lot of, there's an agency I actually have a relationship with. And back in the day that they also only did web design development. And that's been consciously what I want to do, right? I don't want to get into the digital marketing and ads and doing all that stuff. But they did make the pivot. They decided they needed to do that to continue to make money or whatever, to succeed. But I've kept it focused. I partner with those people. I partner with companies like he has, where he's got a marketing department, he's got a customer support, he's got other agency relationships, but we fill this particular niche. And that's what we're designed for. But that just told me, and the reason I say that is that told me, like, I'm doing the right things, and I'm doing it from, like, far as he's concerned, he's dealt with me all these years, and my team's done stuff. My team's always, I have a dedicated resource for him. But it's always me and him talking and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's that personal relationship. That's that. And so, when we first met, actually, I was the one that fixed a huge problem for him. And that's how we started that relationship. But it's just interesting. I think that really tells me, like, I'm not on the wrong path, even with AI, even with everything happening. And I'm using AI in the stuff that I build for him. There's still, I still have this very unique position, like where Matt is, part of this, and I'm part of the brand. I'm part of, how we show up every day, and how, like front facing with the clients and doing the building. And, but I always want to turn this into a lesson that, that you can take away, that you can think about. And I don't know, I feel like I've been rambling a lot during this episode, but at the end of the day, like, I think hopefully the kind of the takeaway here is like, if you have a business, and you're feeling chaotic, or you don't feel right in your position, and everyone's told you have to build this big thing, that you have to grow. Do you? Maybe that's not for all of us. Maybe some of us just need to stay in the craft and do it because we love to do that. Maybe we don't even want to retire. I know there's people in tech and stuff that don't want to retire. They'll just keep doing what they're doing forever until they die, or they just can't do it for some reason, physically or mentally. They don't think about that. And I think that's kind of where I'm leaning right now, is I'm really thinking that I just want to make a decent living. I want to, I want to be able to save money. I want to be able to build, continue to build the nest egg. But I don't need to build, I don't need to focus on the numbers so much. So simplifying, refocusing, and reconnecting with what you love. Maybe you can try that. Maybe if you're not happy doing what you're doing, you can try that. For me, it's like, I've seen it now, as I've said a number of times during this podcast. I've seen it now. Like, I've seen other large agencies operate, and I'm sure every agency is different, of course. They are, because I deal with multiple, but I've seen them poorly run. I've seen them well run, but I've seen them struggle. I've seen how they had to be constructed. And, like, I don't want to build an agency where every day it's like chaos and nightmare. Just build, fast, go. No time to breathe, no fun, micromanaging. Everything's micromanaged. I just want to enjoy the craft. I want to show up every day. I want to have a good time. We're going to have problems. We're going to have challenges. We do all the time. I have challenges on my plate right now. For some reason, one of my clients, suddenly, we're really involved with the metapixel and, conversion tracking and stuff we didn't do for them, and we are now. Like custom events and issues and things related to that. But you know what? I'm enjoying it. I love that. I being part of that. And right now our team's a size where it's like, I'm going to take that project, and I have somebody else working on this other thing over here, but we're not, we're all working together. It's fun. I don't see, like, I'm talking about, my brand becoming more Matt Levenhagen, being baked back into the brand more, and focusing on that, less about the large, but I still will have a team. I still want to continue to develop content, still want to do this podcast, so I'll have that team. But I also, will probably, I might have a dedicated resource helping me out. I might pull in people as I need it. Certain projects, larger projects, I'll bring in and develop a little team for that. Carefully. So many lessons this year. I keep saying things and I keep thinking like, oh, that was traumatic. I had to build a team really fast a couple months earlier this year. I had to add like 5-6 developers like overnight, and that was not fun. And I don't hope to ever be in that position again. Because the ripple effects of that are insane. Like there was the source of all this did not care at all that we had other clients and the effect on our agency. They could care less about our agency. They did. They don't care, and that's fine. They care about themselves. That's fine. They care about what they're doing. They didn't care about how things affected us over here. It is what it is, right? I'm going to ask more questions next time, though. But, kind of leave you with this. Sometimes, growth isn't adding, isn't about adding more, about reaching, those new heights, having those big dreams of millions of dollars, building this huge business. And sometimes it's about kind of just refining and simplifying and doing what you enjoy and what you do best at. And that's a personal thing. I think Gary Vee, I don't really follow Gary Vee that much, but I used to more. One of the things I remember he would always say, like, he had friends or he knew people that only made $60,000 a year or something like that. And but they were happy. They were happy. That was a good life for them. That's not for him. That's not for somebody else. There's certain people out there, like, they're talking about venture capital and they're building big things and they're doing great, but it's not for all of us, right? So maybe I've learned that. Maybe Matt just wants Unified Web Design to be a nice little agency. I've always wanted to be a boutique agency, but I thought a big boutique agency. How do you define a boutique agency? It still could be millions of dollars of revenue per year. Still could be. It could still happen. Not saying it's not going to happen, but it's not going to be my primary focus, as I've said multiple times, and I'm going to just start going in circles. So I'm just going to call it here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I kind of poured my heart out here, and I've actually, how they say you say things publicly or whatever, and now you have to do it. It's like you're accountable to all these people that just heard you say what you're going to do. But I'm pretty clear on what I'm going to do. I think it's just, it is what it is. So I'm going to end this now because I could go edit this quick so it can go out tomorrow morning and then get back into code and have some fun. So hope everything's going well with you. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take care of yourself. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And UnifiedLabs.ai is where we explore smart, practical ways to integrate AI directly into your website and e-commerce flows. From intelligent chatbots to marketing automation to back-end reporting, all with a strong focus on user experience and making your systems work smarter. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with someone who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building smarter, bolder, and with purpose.